Mujo Hayo Shinto Kaji. Mujo Hayo Shinto Kaji. Talent de bien faire. Talent de bien faire. Oh, we shall speak in English. That is not at all my language, and my pronunciation is not so good. But still, some friend asked me about my seminar or workshop on Fernando Pessoa and his path of esoteric and spirituality. And I shall try to improvise some minutes on a better understanding who was him, and I will also try to read and translate at the same time some of his more remarkable texts on spirituality. He was born in 1888 in Lisbon. First children of a critic art and a lady from Azores who was keen to speak French and to play piano, an artistic family. His father was also from critic of music in newspaper Diário Notícias. They married 1 year before Fernando Pessoa being born on the 13th of June. 13th June, that is also the day of the most remarkable and known saint of Portugal, called also by the name of the town where he dies, in Padova, Italy. He was a friend and one of the first friars and companions of Saint Francis of Assisi, and he was a very strong mystic and also an ascetic and also a good speaker, a preacher, and so he had elevated very quickly to the ranks of saints. And Pessoa took so his name, Fernando Antonio de Nogueira, from his mother, and Pessoa from his father. As his father died 5 years ago from tuberculosis, and his mother married 2 years or less after, he has gone with his mother to South Africa, where his father-in-law was living, and he stayed there from 180, 90, more or less, 94, 95 exactly, and he came back just in 1905, although having come 1 year in the middle of his studies. He was a remarkable student, and he got some good masters, like the headmaster Nicholas and the school teacher of commercial art, who have given a strong impulsion in himself that was to be very important in his later life, as he didn't finish his studies of the university where he entered in Portugal, and he entered more in working as a commercial translator, a correspondent of letters, and translating them and writing them with a very free time, and receiving from some of them very good treatment and full freedom to work whatever time. So is the son of one of his employers, Mr. Moutinho de Almeida, Pedro Moutinho de Almeida, was also a very devout friend of Fernando Pessoa, as he began to see how much wisdom and knowledge was within. When he was just 24, he wrote a set of articles to the most notable review of Portugal at that time, Agia, from the Renaissance movement of the higher masters and beings like Leonardo Coimbra, Jaime Cortesão, and Teixeira de Pascoais. These three masters were, for him, at the beginning of his career, like light beacons to his path. But after, he was disillusioned with some people from Renaissance Portuguese, and it didn't write more to them, as one article was not received by them because he had already too much decadent symbolism or almost static movement in a piece of a dialogue of women near the sea with so much just mysterious and indefinitely and vague and some kind of pessimism. As a matter of fact, it was a tradition going far away in all countries of Europe and also in the States, United States, this kind of pessimism and decadent and a bit morbid or even finding attraction to the void or to the devil or whatever. And Pessoa, as at that time, received the influences of Edgar Allan Poe and also from Schopenhauer and from Nietzsche, and at the same time he had read the most important poets and writers of English literature when he was in South Africa, and from there he got a magnificent classical culture that was also taken to the classics of Greek and Rome, where he found that was the really true soul and pattern of Europe. And he began to write some poems that would become the bearers of the seed of his most famous achievement, the creation of three heteronyms, most known: Alberto Carreiro, a bucolic poet who just sees the things as they are seen; Carreiro, who feels the things and sees the things as they shall be seen in a manner of harmony and regularity, very much in a kind of balance between Epicurean and stoical traditions from Greek and Rome, and our campus that was mostly futurist and mostly open to feel all the things and achieve a non-state of ego and self. So Fernando Pessoa in 40s and 50s begins to work on that on the renaissance of paganism. He's really writing about Christianity from Rome, he called even Christismo, and influenced by Binet Sanglé also, he has many pages about the relation of genius and lunacy and decay and degeneracy, and about Jesus or other genius. But in 1915 he is invited to translate some books of theosophy from Leadbeater and Bezan and one of Blavatsky, the famous Voice of Silence. And then he began to translate is really impressed by the strong power of a wall that is there, that can in a certain way portray the truth, but in a way also so much Christian and so much feminine and so much fraternitarian and humanitarian that was not at all his state of mind at this moment, where he was more akin to a position of being a bit rude about women, about working class people, about democracy, about fraternity. He was too much aristocratic and to the strongers or the intelligent ones. And he reads this, he writes a letter to his famous friend, that is Mario de Sacarnet, that was already living in Paris and was his most near and intimate friend. How he was impressed by this reading, and he remembers that many years ago he had felt also the same impression of being in front of a good expression of the occult truths by reading the book of Englishman Hargreaves Jennings, that has written a book called The Rites and Mysteries of the Rosicrucians. This book is still today in the library of Fernando Pessoa, that is kept in this museum house of Fernando Pessoa. That is digitalized, it is online, and you can see the books he had in his, some of them surely, because he sold some of them, needing some money sometimes. But still there is 1,000 something books, and some of them very much written and with notes and showing more than one lecture. That is the case of these myths, rites and mysteries of the Rosicrucians. And that book is a quite very interesting approach to the spirituality and to the hermetic and esoteric traditions of all countries and people, and giving very much value to the Rosicrucians, speaking about Flood, Meyer, Vaughan, Paracelsus, and others. And so, at this time of 1915, when Fernando Pessoa is translating Theosophy, he is already reacting, and in his diary is written, "Today I created some thoughts anti-Theosophy," and at this moment he translated anyway, still in these years of 15 and 16, 6 books, but after it does not translate more, and the books of this collection will be translated by a man called Fernando Castro, that some people are still in our days defending what is not true, that it was a translation of Pessoa. No, Fernando Pessoa has just translated these 6 books, and sometimes even committing small errors like translating the spirit in English by the mind in Portuguese meant. Anyway, at this time, Fernando Pessoa was in his, as I said, in his development of this neo-paganism, and especially he had in this year of 15 the famous development and giving birth of 2 numbers of the magazine called Orfeu, that was the first futurist and modernist publication, similar to the Blast that's of England, that Fernando Pessoa has in a number in his library, or some influences coming from France, like Marinetti and others. In fact, Orfeu was a very important magazine, as he was like a stone in a pound, a moody pound, and created many repercussions against him, and people say they were almost crazy people. Still, there was collaboration of very notable beings, special Amada Negreiros, that has become a very famous painter and special, making sketches and small and drawings, very much akin to the geometric wisdom and searching the famous point of Beirut. And other ones like Sacarneiro, also very sensitive to the spirituality, but having a weak mind and died very quickly in Paris. And also others like Ferreira Gomes, that was to live all the time and being an occultist also. Raul Leal also living many more years and being also an occultist, although his system of philosophy was too much astral and mixing all levels without any idea of distinguishing good or bad. And others like Tomás de Almeida, Montalvor, Guisado, Armando Corto Rodrigues, etc., etc. This magazine, as the father of Sacarneiro has not given more money, has not been published the third num that was already almost composed, and so we have to wait around 50 years past to see the third number of Orfeo. Anyway, at this time, Fernando Pessoa begins to research more at the spiritual tradition and in opposition to theosophy, and he enters more on the Freemasonry, in the Rosicrucians, in the Kabbalah, in the occult writers of England and French movements, notably the orders of occult, the higher orders like Golden Dawn, like Martinism, like Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, Astra Argentarium, and he began to write many papers and texts on initiation, on the relation of Jews and Franco-Masonry, on the master grade, and other subjects that show us that he was really interested in to create a order or a branch or a renewing of the Portuguese spiritual tradition that was present, especially in the Knights Templars and the Order of Christ. And so we have in his papers that is left when he died in 35, with 47-year-olds, around 1,000 texts that were not published at his time about spirituality, religion, Freemasonry, secret orders, reincarnation, theosophy, intuition, getting close to the initiation, and we can notice in some of them very high wisdom. We can see that in his library he was buying books from that time and taking them from different traditions. We can see some books of Ramacharaka, William Walter Atkinson, very superficial, but still that where some of them were speaking about the Indian tradition in a certain way. Also Rama Prasada, The Science of Tattvas, and better books like Franz Hartmann, the books of White and Black Magic, as they were people with more knowledge of what was going on and making a synthesis already between East and West. A notable book from him from his library that we can see there still his quests old and new from Mid. Mid was man was passed in Golden Dawn in theosophy, and he could read Latin and Greek and made important translations, and he was familiar to the perennial tradition, and in his book transmits wisdom from China to India to the Hermetics. And Pessoa was reading this, and he was reading also other important writers like Arthur Edward Waite, where he has his book on the Rosicrucian, very much read and noted, and taking some parts of it even to his small papers, like for example one related to alchemy, where he speaks about different stages from to attain the state of rubification, the state of being in fire of light and love, and begins by closing the avenues of sense, stilling the mind, making the transmutation of the memories and igniting the inner fire. Fernando Pessoa, we can say that in a certain way he was a spiritual master, and in his life he had the contact with some people by letters that were also considered by him masters, like Sampaio Bruno, that was a Portuguese writer but mostly intellectual, and was very much knower on Sebastianism. He wrote 2 letters with him, but an important thing. Also Henry, the brothers D'Urville, from the Psychic Society and Magician Societies in French, very learned men, have written very important books. Fernando Pessoa has written to them about his personality. And then on the 30s, he made acquaintance with the famous magician Aleister Crowley, who has come to Portugal to meet him and maybe to create some kind of branch of his orders, either the Astra Argentarum, either the Ordo Templus Orient. Most probably it was the Astra Argentarum, but Fernando Pessoa was already on the track of his own order, and it is possible that he had received some initiation. He has received it, surely, but just by osmosis, or if by concrete touching and receiving some words and techniques, we cannot know. But we know that Raul Leal was initiated on the night of 9 September, as it is in the diary of Crowley, and most probably Pessoa would be there. Crowley has come with a lady, Alissa, and it was impressed Pessoa that he had 2 times, but just some months, a love affair with a very nice lady, Ophelia, but he stopped it. And the first time in the 20s, he stopped it because he was beginning to develop the spiritual states of soul and being in connection with the masters, and he had to obey to a higher order, and he could not stay with them. In 1999, he has a new affair with her, and it takes only some months, and another time he finishes, and this time he just says, I have a literary work to accomplish. So, he was becoming mostly a poet, but his inner state was deeply axialized at an axis that was keeping him in the search of the true, in the search of the master, in the search of the logos, of the mystery of the word, the connection to God. And so he has published some books of poems in English, Antinous 35 English poems, and he collaborated in some magazines and reviews with poems, and also with some parts of his most famous book, called The Book of Disquiet, Livro do Desassossego, that was his main task as Bernardo Soares, that was a kind of heteronym of himself, almost at level of others, but it was considered to have just obnubulation, a small diminution of his individuality. And the other three that he created, Carreiro, Reis, and Campos, they were really individualities that he has created, even astrological signs. He had also created two other almost heteronyms, and they were Rafael Baldaia, that was the man to write a book on spirituality against theosophy, and he was the astrologer, and we have to say that in his search of science occult that led him at the beginning to make spiritists and sciences, invoking answers to these questions, and studying phrenology and physiognomy and tarot. He had also developed very much, and he has left around 2,000 papers on astrology. He has written many and made horoscopes. But another one, it was Antonio Mora, who was a theoretician of paganism, and he was at that time very much against even mysticism or even the Gnostics and even Masonry. But with the beginning, he began to become a Gnostic, and knowing that it was in Rosicrucian, in Freemasonry, that this higher knowledge of the secrets of the life after death, of the soul, of the cosmos, and of its beings, and how to work with the invisible nature of the nature and of human being, that it was there. And so at the end of his life, in 1935, he has entered, after publishing his most famous nationalist book, Mensagem, a patriotic but also very deep esoteric and Rosicrucian and Templar tradition. He has published some articles in defense of the secret orders and meaning them Freemasonry. He says that he was a Christian Gnostic, and he was initiated in the 3 grades of the Order Templar of Portugal, that was supposed to be in extinction, and he finished his letter of 6 months before dying, asking to fight everyone against the 3 killers of the master mole of the Templars, the egoism, ambition, tyranny, and ignorance.